For decades, the Little Rascals defined childhood chaos we never forgot. But more than 30 years later, those familiar faces have changed beyond recognition. Some disappeared forever, while others became millionaires. Join us as we reveal their real names, real ages, and what their real lives look like today in this video. Travis Tedford as Spanky McFarland. Spanky McFarland, the stubborn, pint-sized commander of the He-Man Woman Haters Club in The Little Rascals, was played by Travis Tedford. At 6 years old, he functioned as the emotional and narrative center of the group, the child whose confidence, defiance, and authority pushed the story forward. That confidence was carefully constructed for him. Born August 19, 1988 in Dallas, Texas, Travis William Tedford entered the industry at an age when most children were still learning how to belong. Filming schedules frequently pulled him out of regular school routines, forcing tutors and shortened days that made it difficult to form lasting friendships. While balancing early fame, he appeared in projects like Slappy and The Stinkers, but the constant movement between sets and classrooms left him socially isolated. As he grew older, the industry that once embraced him became harder to navigate. The transition from beloved child leader to adult actor stalled because Hollywood struggled to imagine him beyond Spanky. He appeared in projects like Slappy and The Stinkers, and later The 13th Floor, yet opportunities narrowed instead of expanding. Behind the scenes, the silence between roles became heavier than the noise of fame ever was. Eventually, Tedford stepped away, choosing stability over waiting for a phone call that never came. Marriage and family offered grounding, while work in marketing gave him control over his own future. The emotional toll of early visibility lingered, including periods of mild depression tied to growing up watched and judged, but he rebuilt quietly. Today, Travis Tedford is 38 years old. He lives outside the spotlight, working as a marketing manager while occasionally reconnecting with acting on his own terms. His estimated net worth of around $500,000 reflects a life reshaped rather than ruined by early fame. What hurts most is not what he lost, but how young he had to be when he learned to let go. Bug Hall as Alfalfa Switzer. Alfalfa Switzer, the awkward romantic with the crooked voice and iconic cowlick in The Little Rascals, was portrayed by Bug Hall. At 9 years old, he embodied the film's emotional vulnerability, the character whose sincerity and humiliation carried its softest and most painful humor. The role made him unforgettable. For Hall, it also became inescapable. Born February 4, 1985, Brandon Bug Hall spent much of his childhood moving between film sets and classrooms. Classmates mocked his alfalfa image, turning recognition into ridicule during formative years. While still young, he worked on films such as The Big Green and The Stupids, but the workload and public attention left little room for emotional recovery. His career continued with films like The Stupids, and later roles in projects such as The Big Green, along with a Young Artist Award recognition tied to The Little Rascals. Yet success came unevenly. As roles dried up, financial strain and identity loss set in. In 2020, his arrest for inhalant abuse shocked the public. Family life brought both support and controversy. Married to Jill DeGroff and raising children, Hall faced renewed scrutiny over legal issues and polarizing public statements, turning private belief into public backlash. Mental health challenges and addiction recovery intertwined with his decision to step away from Hollywood, leaving behind fame but not its consequences. Now, Bug Hall is 41 years old. He remains alive, living largely outside mainstream entertainment while raising his family and occasionally resurfacing through independent projects. With an estimated net worth of about $250,000, his story is not one of riches lost, but of costs paid early. What shocks most is not the arrest or the controversy. It is how much of his struggle began before he was ever old enough to choose another path. Brittany Ashton Holmes as Darla. the beautiful magnetic girl who became the emotional center of affection in The Little Rascals, was played by Brittany Ashton Holmes. At 5 years old, she served as the film's symbol of desire and innocence, the character around whom jealousy, rivalry, and longing quietly revolved. Her smile softened the chaos of the boys' world. Even then, the expectations placed on her image were far heavier than they appeared. Born February 27, 1989 in California, Brittany's childhood unfolded under pressure. Filming schedules repeatedly disrupted school life, forcing her to balance homework with auditions and sets at an age when stability mattered most. Alongside The Little Rascals, she appeared on television in Ellen, experiences that intensified attention toward her appearance and behavior. Instead of confidence, that early exposure nurtured anxiety and emotional withdrawal. Her acting career proved brief but intense. After appearing in Humanoids from the Deep, Brittany chose to step away rather than remain confined to a childhood image she could not outgrow. The decision was driven by exhaustion and fear of being exploited, not lack of opportunity. She redirected her life toward academics, studying political science, deliberately distancing herself from Hollywood's pressures. Privacy became a form of survival rather than retreat. Brittany married and built a quiet, stable life far from cameras, but the transition from being recognized everywhere to being unseen was emotionally complex. The Little Rascals continued to circulate through reruns and nostalgia, while her appearance on Ellen remained a reminder of how visible she once was. Lingering social anxiety traced directly back to a childhood lived under scrutiny. Today, Brittany Ashton Holmes is 37 years old. She lives a private life away from Hollywood, rarely appearing in public or media. Her estimated net worth of around $100,000 comes largely from residuals tied to her early work. Kevin Jamal Woods as Stymie, the sharp-witted vice president of the club in The Little Rascals, was played by Kevin Jamal Woods. At 7 years old, he brought intelligence and emotional balance to the group, often grounding the chaos around him. His performance gave the film its quiet maturity. That maturity, however, was demanded far too early. Born January 6, 1987, Kevin Jamal Woods spent his childhood divided between classrooms and film sets. Traditional schooling was frequently replaced by tutors due to demanding shooting schedules, leaving him socially isolated from peers. During this period, he appeared in films such as A Little Princess, but professional expectations overshadowed ordinary childhood experiences. As adolescence approached, opportunities diminished. Hollywood's interest faded quickly, and Kevin struggled to transition beyond child roles. Rather than endure prolonged rejection, he chose to leave acting altogether, closing the door on an industry that had shaped him before he could shape himself. Life outside the camera required rebuilding from the inside out. Kevin redirected his skills into structured, behind-the-scenes work, applying discipline learned on film sets to a new career path. His early performances in The Little Rascals and A Little Princess remained part of his identity, but no longer dictated his future. In 2026, Kevin Jamal Woods is 39 years old. He works as an event manager, living outside the entertainment industry. His estimated net worth of around $200,000 reflects modest stability rather than celebrity excess. Jordan Warkol as Froggy, the boy with the unforgettable croaking voice in The Little Rascals, was played by Jordan Warkol. At 8 years old, he became the film's most instantly recognizable comic element, a character remembered more for sound than dialogue. His timing and physical reactions turned Froggy into a running gag audiences adored. That same gag would later become a personal wound. Born November 21, 1986, Jordan Warkol's childhood was defined by a single destabilizing moment. His speaking voice in the film was replaced in post-production by voice actress E.G. Daly. The decision was made without his consent and delivered without explanation, leaving an 8-year-old to discover that the thing people laughed at was not actually his. While audiences embraced Froggy, Jordan internalized the idea that his real voice was inadequate. During this period, he continued working on family-friendly projects like Carpool and A Bug's Life, but the damage to his confidence had already taken root. As he grew older, industry attention diminished. Jordan shifted toward voice work, including Rocket Power. Instead of chasing diminishing opportunities, he slowly withdrew, choosing distance from an industry that had reshaped his self-image too early. Stability came through structure rather than spotlight. Jordan married Sandra Melissa in 2018, became the father of Olivia Blake Warkol, and redirected his focus toward competitive poker, where control, risk, and outcome were his to manage. His earlier credits, The Little Rascals, Rocket Power, remained part of his history, but no longer defined his present. Family life offered something acting never did: predictability. Now, Jordan Warkol is 40 years old. He lives a private life centered on poker and family, far from Hollywood. His estimated net worth of around $300,000 reflects steady reinvention rather than lost fame. Zachary Mabry as Porky, the wide-eyed, gentle youngest member of the group in The Little Rascals, was played by Zachary Mabry. At just 4 years old, he represented pure innocence, grounding the film's chaos with presence rather than performance. He required almost no dialogue to be remembered. Childhood, for him, began already under instruction. Born January 19, 1990, in Plano, Texas, Zachary V. Mabry entered filmmaking before forming lasting memories of ordinary life. Early filming schedules placed adult expectations on a toddler, demanding patience, repetition, and compliance instead of play. The Little Rascals became his defining credit, not because he lacked opportunity, but because the experience itself quietly exhausted his connection to performance at an age when boundaries did not yet exist. As he grew older, Zachary did not attempt to extend his acting career. He stepped away before typecasting or rejection could reshape his identity further. Unlike peers who fought to remain visible, he chose withdrawal as preservation, allowing Porky to remain untouched by later disappointment. Education became the path forward. Zachary pursued technology and engineering, building a life structured around logic and predictability rather than applause. His early film work remained limited to The Little Rascals, but that singular role continued to circulate culturally even as he moved on entirely. The contrast between public memory and private growth remained quietly unresolved. In 2026, Zachary Mabry is 36 years old. He works as a software engineer, living outside the entertainment world. His estimated net worth of around $500,000 reflects a career built deliberately and invisibly. Courtland Mead as the soft-spoken, observant member of the group in The Little Rascals, was played by Courtland Mead. At 7 years old, he communicated almost entirely through expression rather than dialogue. That restraint would later mirror his real-life struggle to escape narrow expectations. Born April 19, 1987, in Mission Viejo, California, Courtland began acting before he could fully articulate choice. Commercials and early film roles replaced routine childhood rhythms, and recognition arrived long before identity settled. Playing placed him into a specific mold: quiet, strange, easily categorized, which followed him beyond the film. As he grew, that label became harder to shed. Despite strong performances in projects like The Shining miniseries and Tom and Huck, he found himself repeatedly typecast. Voice work offered refuge, leading to major roles such as Gus Griswold in Recess and characters in Lloyd in Space and Nightmare Ned, but the transition from child actor to adult presence remained uneven. Gradually, Courtland redirected his creative energy. While Recess continued to define him for a generation, he moved away from constant acting, later focusing on music and independent creative work. He married Chelsea Jean Wetstein, and they welcomed their daughter Scarlett Parker Mead in 2018, anchoring his life in stability rather than performance. Today, Courtland Mead is 39 years old. He lives a grounded life centered on music, family, and selective creative projects. His estimated net worth of around $1 million reflects long-term voice work and smart career shifts. Sam Saletta as Butch Butch, the aggressive, intimidating bully of the rival gang in The Little Rascals, was played by Sam Saletta. At 10 years old, he brought physical dominance and menace to the film, becoming the face of childhood cruelty within the story. His role required intimidation rather than charm. That distinction followed him beyond the screen. Born October 1st, 1984, Sam's early career was shaped by characters defined by conflict. Playing Butch cemented him as a tough kid, limiting the range offered to him afterward. The attention was real, but the pathway was narrow, forcing him to navigate adolescence under a fixed image he did not choose. As acting opportunities thinned, Sam faced the difficult transition many child actors encounter. He appeared in television projects such as Seventh Heaven, but momentum never fully recovered. Rather than chase diminishing roles, he shifted his focus, confronting the emotional toll of early typecasting and the pressure to reinvent without a clear roadmap. Creativity found a new outlet through music. Sam redirected his discipline into songwriting and performance, building a quieter career behind the scenes. His earlier work in The Little Rascals and television remained part of his identity, but music offered autonomy. Today, Sam Saletta is 42 years old. He works primarily as a musician, living outside Hollywood's core spotlight. His estimated net worth of around $200,000 reflects a life rebuilt through persistence rather than fame. Blake Jeremy Collins as Woyim, the awkward, easily overlooked member of the gang in The Little Rascals, was played by Blake Jeremy Collins. At 9 years old, he filled the background with subtle reactions rather than loud punchlines. His role was small but precise. That quiet presence mirrored how his career would later unfold. Born around 1985, Blake Jeremy Collins entered the industry without the safety net of a breakout identity. After The Little Rascals, opportunities arrived sporadically, often limited to brief appearances rather than defining roles. Growing up meant watching peers move forward while his own momentum slowed. The lack of continuity created early frustration and uncertainty about whether acting would ever become sustainable. As adolescence passed, Hollywood offered fewer chances. Blake continued auditioning, but the shift from child roles to adult casting proved unforgiving. Instead of disappearing entirely, he accepted smaller parts, learning to survive on the margins of the industry rather than at its center. The disappointment was not sudden. It accumulated quietly. He later appeared in television projects such as ER, a reminder of his persistence even as fame stayed out of reach. Years afterward, he resurfaced in films like Galaxy Mystery Decoded and Army of the Dead-era independent productions, proving that the door never fully closed. These roles did not restore childhood visibility, but they allowed him to remain connected to the craft. Now, Blake Jeremy Collins is 41 years old. He is alive, continuing to work intermittently in film and television while maintaining a life largely outside public attention. His estimated net worth of around $300,000 reflects steady survival rather than stardom. Blake McIver Ewing as Waldo Johnston III. Waldo Johnston III, the wealthy, polished rival who flaunted privilege in The Little Rascals, was played by Blake McIver Ewing. At 9 years old, he embodied entitlement with precision, becoming a foil the audience loved to resent. His performance was confident and controlled. That control hid a far more fragile private reality. Born March 27, 1985, Blake McIver Ewing grew up navigating success alongside isolation. While already known for his work on Full House, he faced confusion and fear around his identity at an age when self-acceptance felt dangerous. Being a gay child actor in the 1990s meant learning silence early, even as cameras celebrated him. The contrast between visibility and concealment was emotionally punishing. As he matured, the strain deepened. Acting continued, but internal conflict overshadowed external success. He moved between television, theater, and voice work, struggling to reconcile who he was with who the industry expected him to be. The pressure did not break him, but it delayed him. Creative freedom eventually came through music and advocacy. Blake released his album, The Time Manipulator, co-wrote songs such as Along the River, and used his voice in projects tied to LGBTQ+ visibility, including the It Gets Better project. Appearances on Fuller House and voice work on Hey Arnold kept his acting legacy alive, while a Grammy nomination validated his shift toward music. In 2026, Blake McIver Ewing is 41 years old. He remains active as a singer, host, and advocate, living openly after years of concealment. His estimated net worth of around $2 million reflects both longevity and reinvention. Juliet Brewer as Marianne, the gentle, soft-spoken girl who quietly balanced Darla's presence in The Little Rascals, was played by Juliet Brewer. At 8 years old, she brought warmth and calm to the ensemble, often existing on the edges of louder personalities. Her role would later define her path away from fame. Born August 26, 1986, in Los Angeles, California, Juliet Elizabeth Brewer entered acting at an age when structure was still forming. Growing up in Hollywood meant auditions blended into school days, and friendships were often temporary. After The Little Rascals, she continued working in family-oriented projects such as Balto, where she voiced Rosie, gaining recognition without ever becoming a headline name. As opportunities continued, Juliet appeared in Vegas Vacation, her final film role. By the late 1990s, the pace and uncertainty of acting began to outweigh its rewards. Rather than fight for relevance or accept diminishing roles, she chose to step away completely. The decision was decisive, ending her acting career while she was still a teenager. Life after Hollywood unfolded deliberately. Juliet redirected her skills into creative coordination, eventually working as an event coordinator at Jen Kruger Design, applying discipline learned on sets to a different kind of production. Her earlier work in Balto and Vegas Vacation remained part of her identity, but no longer dictated her future. Today, Juliet Brewer is 40 years old. She lives a quiet, private life outside the entertainment industry. Her estimated net worth of around $100,000 reflects modest stability rather than celebrity excess. Heather Karasek as Jane, the lesser-seen but recognizable member of the children's circle in The Little Rascals, was played by Heather Karasek. At 7 years old, she contributed to the film's lived-in realism, helping populate a world that felt busy, chaotic, and believable. Her presence was brief, but precise. Born October 28, 1988 in Los Angeles, California, Heather Elizabeth Karasek grew up around the industry without being consumed by it. Acting came as exposure rather than destiny, offering early insight into film sets and creative labor. Unlike peers pushed aggressively towards stardom, her childhood involvement remained limited, allowing space for observation rather than pressure. As she grew older, Heather's relationship with film shifted behind the camera. Heather worked as a costume designer, contributing to projects such as Choi Hae Chet, Phien Ban Dao Dien, and Yunga Trai Hu, Choi Hae Bi Soi, placing her firmly on the creative side without public scrutiny. The Little Rascals remained a footnote rather than a destination. In 2026, Heather Karasek is 39 years old. She continues working in costume design and film-related creative roles, maintaining a low public profile. Her estimated net worth of around $100,000 reflects steady professional work rather than celebrity status. Whoopi Goldberg as Buckwheat's mom. Buckwheat's mother, The firm yet quietly grounding presence in The Little Rascals was played by Whoopi Goldberg. At 39 years old, she stepped briefly into a children's comedy with the authority of a seasoned performer. Her role anchored buckwheat in reality. It was a small appearance, carrying the weight of a life already lived loudly. Born November 13, 1955, in Manhattan, New York City, Karen Elaine Johnson grew up in public housing, raised by a single mother who worked relentlessly to keep structure intact. Dyslexia made school humiliating, not challenging, and racism shaped her sense of safety early. She dropped out of high school and moved through survival jobs like bank teller, bricklayer, mortuary cosmetologist. Trauma followed her into adulthood, including a plane crash she witnessed that left lasting fear and PTSD. Her career exploded only after years of invisibility. A one-woman stage show led to The Color Purple, where her portrayal of Celie earned a Golden Globe and redefined expectations for Black women on screen. Success did not soften the industry. It hardened her. By the time she appeared in The Little Rascals, she was already navigating fame with suspicion rather than gratitude. The years that followed confirmed her stature. She won an Academy Award for Ghost, became the face of Sister Act, and achieved the rare EGOT distinction: Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony, while continuing stage work and television through Star Trek, The Next Generation, and The View. Her personal life fractured alongside professional highs, marked by 3 marriages to Alvin Martin, David Clausen, and Lyle Trachtenberg, all ending in divorce. Dyslexia remained, but so did resilience. Today, Whoopi Goldberg is 71 years old. She remains active as a television host, producer, and cultural voice, with an estimated net worth of around $60 million. Daryl Hannah as Miss Crabtree. Miss Crabtree, the gentle, soft-spoken school teacher in The Little Rascals, was played by Daryl Hannah. At 34 years old, she brought calm authority to a film built on noise and chaos. Her character offered patience rather than control. Behind that softness lived a far harsher reality. Born December 3, 1960, in Chicago, Illinois, Daryl Christine Hannah grew up emotionally isolated, struggling with severe shyness and sensory overload. Doctors diagnosed her with autism in childhood and advised institutionalization. Instead, her mother uprooted their life, searching for environments that might help her daughter function without being erased. School remained difficult, and isolation followed her into adolescence. Acting became expression, not escape. Early roles led to visibility, but the industry rarely showed mercy. By the time she reached adulthood, she was already known for physically demanding performances and emotional restraint. Her career reached iconic heights with Blade Runner and Splash, and later hardened into intensity with Kill Bill. Yet success came with cost. She later spoke about harassment by Harvey Weinstein and believed professional retaliation followed. Now, Daryl Hannah is 66 years old. She is married to Neil Young, continues directing and environmental work, and remains selective with acting. Her estimated net worth of around $20 million reflects longevity, not indulgence. 32 years later, the faces may look different, but the scars, choices, and silences remain. Some of The Little Rascals, 1994, found peace far from the spotlight, while others carried childhood fame into lifelong battles. So looking at the cast then and now in 2026, who surprised you the most? And whose story hurt the deepest? Leave your thoughts below, subscribe for more cast stories, and join us as we uncover what fame really took from a generation.